Alright, we're back with another crosskart video. I know it's been a minute since we've done anything, but I've been busy. I just got back from Florida, spent some time out there. I think our last video was the hunting video, so that was back in September. But yeah, I'm off this week, so I'm going to try to get some good stuff done on the crosskart. First things first is getting the sprocket mounted. So the one that the axle came with, it's got a lot wider teeth, so I need to make this sprocket fit where this one was, but as you can see the holes are completely different sizes, so I've been kind of thinking on how I want to do it. I have it traced out on there, so I could hypothetically weld this sprocket to this one and then just drill out a couple holes here so it'll bolt onto my axle where it sits, but that's the easy way. What else I'm going to try to do is I'm going to cut a piece of metal with the plasma cutter or a grinder to fit in there. I'm going to tack it up and see if I can get a hole big enough or a drill bit big enough for this so that I can get it to slide over this bore, because on this axle it sits right here and there's a little bore that it sits over when it bolts so it doesn't walk all over the place. So yeah, if all else fails, I'll just weld this sprocket to this one, because I have to get it as close, that hole centered as much as possible so it doesn't go in an oval shape and goes in a perfect circle. So we got a couple things to try here. We'll just see which one works best. That took longer than expected because my plasma cutter isn't working, but here's my circle that's going in there. We got a nice tight fit. The only thing I'm worried about is there's a little lip around this. I don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal. As long as it's flush on one side, it'll fit flush around here. So not too worried about that. If anything, I'll cut out another one and maybe shave it down a little bit. It might be too thick at that point, and I don't want the bolts sticking out or off-centered, because the holes in this are going to be like halfway in the sprocket, halfway in this. So I might just build this up with weld maybe, and we'll kind of see what happens. I'm going to let that cool down a little bit, and then we'll get it tacked in there and get everything lined up and see how big of a hole I need to drill for it to fit over this bore. I got this hole measured up and it's a little bit bigger than 2 1/4, but I was checking on the axle and this one does walk around a little bit. What I think I'm gonna do is run to the store, get a 3 1/4 drill bit, and then figure out where center is on this. I'll mark everything out, get a pilot hole for the hole saw that I'm getting, and hopefully the 2 1/4 inch bit is big enough. If not, I'll just have to go around and try to hollow it out as evenly as possible, and then we should be able to get it lined up on the axle so I can get these holes right here transferred over onto this one, and then we could fully weld that, and it's going a lot smoother this way than I thought it would. I thought that circle was going to kill me trying to get it out and give it a snug fit inside that sprocket. But yeah, we'll go get that hole saw and start getting that hole drilled. Everything is drilled up now. I measured everything here. It does look like everything's pretty centered. When I was spinning it on the ground, it looks like the slightest bit off, so I don't know if I'll I don't know, it might be the slightest bit off, so I'll still drill holes in it and everything. Maybe we'll run it like this at first. The only problem with me putting it all together and running it like that, if it is messed up, is I gotta weld on my flanges for the end for my CV axles to go on. And the sprocket won't be able to come off unless I cut those off. So hopefully it's not out of whack. I can't really tell, but something just looks a little off. But like I said, I'll drill the holes on that and we'll get everything looked at. Maybe we'll bolt it down inside of there or bolt it down somewhere and spin it and see if it wobbles at all. If there's a tiny bit, I don't see that big of an issue with it because I could put a tensioner on it and it could be like a spring-loaded tensioner that lets it have a little play. Might just be a little unbalanced, but we'll run it like this. We'll get all the holes drilled in it and then we should be done with the axle for today. So it's looking good to me right now. I welded the old sprocket to that, as you saw. That was a mistake, but it did get my holes drilled really good. The mistake was I put too many welds on it and I've spent like the past hour trying to get it off, but it is off. Everything lines up with the holes it's supposed to. It's gotta like go up a little bit, but I think that'll keep it centered like it needs to be. This one does have a little bit of play in it too. But I'll get everything cleaned up, we'll get it bolted up, and I'll kind of spin it, make sure everything's looking good, and if it is, I'll go ahead and I'll weld the rest of this. I gotta be careful not to warp it, so I'm gonna weld it in little sections, so I might not record that part, but catch you guys when that is welded on. Alrighty, sprocket's all welded up and good to go now. I spun it, everything's straight, so we're all good there. I have to go get some tubing to weld my flanges onto that, and I don't know when the store's going to be open, so we're going to start on my steering rack now, getting that fixed up. In one of the last videos, I was talking about my control arms, and I did end up moving them and spacing them out, so they're straight off the frame instead of slanted forward. I have to extend my tie rod ends to be long enough so that my steering is straight. And I also figured out my bump steer, and I don't think there's anything I can do because I was looking for different steering racks, but this joint right here that moves up and down sits like right here. And to not have bump steer, it's supposed to sit at the start of your control arm. But I can't find any, so we're just going to have to make the bump steer as minimal as possible. As long as it's straight at ride height, I don't see that there's going to be a huge issue, because I don't think I'm hitting big jumps in this anyways, because my hubs will give out, because they are not really high-speed hubs. So yeah, I'll pull out my pieces that I cut out of there before and get them sized up and welded in there. So now that everything's hooked up, I did take the shock out to check bump steer. So this is going to be a little lower than ride height. This will probably be ride height right about here. So I might have to shorten this up a little bit more, which isn't that big of a deal. But if it does go all the way up, we are having bump steer, which I knew we were gonna. So I'm not too worried about it because we only have bump steer one way. It doesn't toe in at all. So I'm not too worried about that because if we get up to that height anyways, we're bottoming out. So not that big of a deal to me. But yeah, everything's tightened down here. I do need to get my, what is that? A little pitman, or not pitman arm, a little, What is that? It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, I have to get the splined piece. That way I can run it out and then run it up to my steering wheel and make sure everything's good. You're gonna have to give me a little bit and I'll figure out what I'm gonna do next and we'll go from there. Well, I've been waiting on parts that were supposed to be here about a week and a half ago. They got shipped all over the United States, came from Georgia, made it to Colorado, was about 20 minutes away from me, and then ended up in Portland, Oregon. So I don't know when those parts are going to be here, but that's going to be it for this video because without those parts I can't really do anything. So I hope you guys did enjoy the video. We didn't get a crazy amount done, but we got one big thing done, and that was the sprocket. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I also have the playlist in there so you guys can follow along with the series of this cross cart, and we will see you guys in the next one.